Welcome to Scintillations, the podcast where we explore hot takes on the business of branding, consumers, and culture. Each week, we talk to the top minds from businesses shaping tomorrow, cultural thought leaders, and people with an eye out for what's next. Whether you're a marketing professional, entrepreneur, or simply curious about the forces shaping the world of consumer business, we've got you covered. From the latest trends in consumer behavior to the cutting-edge strategies used by the world's top brands, we'll unpack it all, giving you the insights you'll need to stay ahead of the game. So, join us for scintillating conversations that will help you navigate the ever-changing landscape of modern business, including developments in artificial intelligence tools, like this voiceover. And now, your host, award-winning brand builder, Erica First.
So, hi, Liz. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, thank you. It's really great to be here.
Can we start out with you introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about what you do?
Sure. So I basically run an e-commerce and live shopping agency. I've been in the e-commerce space 20 years, and our agency focuses on e-commerce strategy, web builds, web optimization, audits that focus on UX, UI, customer journey. And on the live shopping side, we are full service. So we do everything from content development, platform selection, platform integration, helping you host it simulcast to social media. And then after the event, we look at, the postmortems. How did you do? How do we tweak it? How do we leverage that content? So really full service there. But what the agency specializes in is focusing on increasing your sales through experiential strategies.
Okay. And so today we're going to be talking about live commerce. So let's start with there. Can you tell us about what it is?
So live commerce, I think a lot of people associate it a little bit with QVC because I think in the US, that's really where it started. It started back with QVC. So it's this blend of content and commerce, but now with the technology, we have the community piece as well. So with QVC, everything wasn't on screen. It was really that they were just showing a product and talking to the community, but the community wasn't interacting. Now we have the community on screen with the host. And what tends to be on screen is not just the hawking of a product, but actually content. So themed content. Maybe it's like how to get ready for a beach season or something along those lines. And the community actually helps with the sale because they chime in about things they like, things they've used, friendships form. It's a very different interaction. So content, commerce, and community all on the same screen at the same time.
And where would we find these? I've seen some live selling from factories in Hong Kong selling counterfeit purses direct to consumer through TikTok. What are the ones you're talking about? What's the range of where we could find these?
Right. So it ranges all different industries. So if we focus on the D2C side, certainly things like beauty, fashion, those are naturals. But even if you think of things like home decor, you could show how to make a smaller room look larger, right? You could go across a lot of different industries. Basically, what the content has to focus on is solving a problem. But what's interesting is I'm starting to see on the B2B side is where that's really picking up as well, because they can use the platform for education for everyone who they're selling to. For example, I actually have an insurance client right now. You never think insurance would get into the live shopping space, but they're using it to educate all of the brokers to help sell the insurance. Here are the new products. Here's the way we would use it. Here's the information you need to know. So the call to action there doesn't have to actually be a product per se, but it could be book an appointment, download a white paper, talk more with us in some way, or here's paperwork associated with this particular product. So B2B is really picking up. So it has wide ranging. It's not just products, it's also services.
But how is this different? So if I'm an insurance company and I'm going to use it to essentially train other people or to sell, how is it different than what's available to me already today?
Basically, because the commerce piece or transactional piece, in that case, is available online at the same time. So say I'm the person who's educating the brokers, they can click on one of the options, which might be download a white paper, book an appointment, etc. The call to action is on the screen at the same time. The technology before now has not allowed the transaction to occur on the same screen. Now you're able to do that. The community can also interact with the host in a real-time way so that they can chat. They can actually bring those comments up onto the screen for everyone to see. So it's not the same as like, if we're on a Zoom and you see like everything in the chat and you can't follow it. Basically, the host will answer questions, pull it up on screen. You can have on-air graphics. The format is very, very different than a strict Zoom or something like that.
Okay. And where do these things happen? Is it like a TikTok and Instagram, or is it on your website? What's the technology?
So there are both. So there are ones that are on social media and there are ones that are on your website. I am an advocate of hosting it from your website because you own the first party data this way, as well as really you own the content, because if we start to put it on the social platforms, you don't own that content anymore. The social platforms also are not native e-commerce platforms. So they were not built to sell. They were built for discovery. So there's a reason that TikTok is so wonderful at discovery, right? It's just that is a format that it is built for. Is it built for e-commerce? I know they're working on it. It remains to be seen.
Mm.
But the social platforms, there's a reason Facebook pulled off. There's a reason Instagram is pulling off. It's a clunky experience and it hasn't taken off there, but actually it's accelerating all the ones that, the standalone platforms, that whole audience and that whole revenue is starting to grow. It's accelerating quite a bit, actually.
What do you mean by standalone?
So standalone would be you're not associated with the social media platform. So
Okay.
any platform that would allow me to launch off my own website.
Okay.
So just think of like the fireworks, the BAM users, the reactives, the, live stage 10, like those type of platforms.
So that would be me organizing a live selling situation from my website. Now, question, why would anyone want to come to my website to knowing that I am there to actively sell them something? It's already hard to drive traffic to your website. Isn't it going to be harder when you know that there's a sales thing?
Well, so that's where people make the mistake. They think it's a sales thing and it's not. It's about the content. It is not about the commerce. And so it's really a value add for your consumer or potential consumer. So you have to think about things, is it a healthy lifestyle? Like what does your product represent? And what is the value added content that you can give to your consumer? Then the commerce is organically layered in. So if we were going back to our example of, maybe it's how to protect your skin in beach season or something, right? So we can talk about different ways and the product, like if I were beauty brands and maybe I have some sort of sunscreen or other sorts of products to make sure my skin doesn't get dry, then we can work that in there. But people can do collaborations with brands, etc. But people are tuning in for the content. The conversion rates that are higher for these programs tend to be ones that are content focused. What we see from coming from the East with China is all the hawking of products. That is not the format that works well in the US. It does not perform as well, mostly, in my opinion, because we grew up in QVC and we needed a little more context. And
It feels also a little low quality, no?
yes, yes. But it's also associated with a certain generation. Like when I think of it as like with my mother's generation, like where people really got into it. I think the younger generation doesn't think of QVC as sexy. I know they're revamping and they're modernizing it somewhat, but like most of us, I think if you're of a certain age, think of it as your parents or your grandparents, medium.
But do you think that live selling or live commerce is targeted towards our generation, or is it more towards, is it a TikTok thing generation, or is it for everybody?
I think it's for everyone, but I think in particular, because Gen Z is already doing 80% of its product discovery on video platforms, it's a natural. For millennials, always seeking out experiential, it's a natural.
So it's basically, if you're doing it properly, it's like a live Emily in Paris. where there's a story, but there's a lot of products.
Yes, no, it's exactly that. And if you think about it, that's where a lot of the live shopping came from.
But would you have within one thing multiple different brands, or it would be mono brand?
You could do both. So a lot of my clients like to do collaborations so they can have wider reaching content. So again, if you go back to a lifestyle, it might be if you're living in a fast-paced world, how do you take the time to slow down or something? And then they would have several different brands. Maybe it's a luxury robe, maybe it's a tea company, maybe it's like a CBD, and they can put it all together and it's under a certain umbrella, right? They can look at it that way. And then other people will do standalone. If you think of someone like Target, who I think has been doing this really, really well, they have thousands of SKUs and they could do lots of different topics, right? For people who have one, type of brand, like if it's just, a beauty brand or it's just a food brand or something like that, you would have a different set that you would go to. But sometimes people would bring in, like if you were a food brand, for example, it might be maybe you use olive oil in the recipe. So maybe you want to partner with the olive oil people. And also because then it expands the audience that would see your shows. So the collaborations help expand the audience for sure. But people do both. It honestly depends on, you know, how many content ideas can you come up with based on your product category, lifestyle that you fit in, etc.
Okay. So, can you give us some statistics to give us an idea of how big this opportunity is, if it's going to planning to grow, if it's going to stay the same?
Sure. So at the end of this year, actually, we're going to hit $31.7 billion dollars in the US. It was originally predicted to hit 35 next year. So as I said, it is accelerating. It's going quite a bit faster. And within, 2 years time, this is going to represent 5% of all of e-commerce sales. So it is growing, growing, growing. And again, I think the discrepancy between what you see in China and here, there's a number of different things. Besides the QVC format, culturally, it's different. They use their phones differently. Live shopping is embedded in the culture. People get together on Friday nights and sit and watch things together. That is not what is happening here in the US. So is there going to be a difference in the numbers? I think there will always be a difference in the numbers. I don't think the US is ever going to catch up. But 35 billion is nothing to sneeze at either. And actually, that number that is 186% growth within 2 years within the live shopping space. So
That's incredible, and especially for something that I don't know if I've ever seen in a live commerce thing. So to think that already 35 billion,
yeah.
that's quite high. Who are some of the more active participants in this platform, like this way of selling?
So a lot of the fashion brands get out there early, Nordstrom, Burberry, some of the luxury brands are playing with it. You have Target, Walmart, they've done a lot of playing in the space. Like as I said, it's easy when you have lots of different SKUs.
Yeah, it's
So
really suited to retail, multi-brand retailers.
yes, but very interesting news that happened this past week was Shopify announced collective. So what that actually means is that in the past, when people wanted to drop ship and not necessarily carry all the inventory, they would have to look for a marketplace and pick things up. Now Shopify is allowing you to be able to sell any other product that is on Shopify. Like obviously you do some partnership deal with, whatever brand it is, but now you can say, I love your brand. You're not part of a marketplace. I can sell your stuff. And they're allowing you to do that. So it's going to allow people to curate in the way that they hadn't done before with brands that are, directly complementary or adjacent in some way. So I think that's really going to expand the ability to do live commerce for a lot of folks who felt a little more limited, particularly if they had just a few SKUs.
So you have someone who's good at content, like good at making interesting content, could potentially turn themselves into a shopping mall by
Absolutely.
pulling together different people.
I mean, it's what a lot of the influencers are doing anyway, right? Like they're recommending brands, but it's like, I think it really gives a lot of the people who are, the content creator type of influencers who have a loyal following who buy into their brand for whether it's beauty, whether it's fashion, whether it's food tips, right? Like those are naturals. They're going to start being like, oh my God, I love this product. And now they can sell it on their store.
Yeah, they become
Or,
distributors essentially,
yep.
a department store. That's an interesting
Yes.
evolution. How else do you think that this can change business slash culture as we know it today?
I think it's a bigger focus on community. I think companies have let it get away from them a little bit where they're pushing stuff out. And this is a way of drawing the community back in, understanding what their needs are, what their thoughts are about your brand, where you're missing a hole, right? Like that there's something that's missing because they're like, oh, you don't carry that anymore. I would love that. Oh, how come you don't make these above a size 16? Like people are making comments in the chat. So you can definitely take that
Right. Real time
from the community.
feedback.
It's definitely real time feedback. And so the other piece I love about it is you could use it for VIPs, right? So you can say, let's create a special experience for them, bring them in, offer them maybe like, you know, items that come in, the pre-sale that they get for first look, first dibs, et cetera, get to meet designers, get to meet the creators, et cetera. So there's a lot of ways that you could use it as well for community and draw those people back in. I feel it's a very strong brand loyalty piece. I think first and foremost, people think of it for conversion, but I'm like, this is a way to really get in touch with your consumers, particularly when they're faceless. Like, their name, their order, but now you have a sense of who these people are and what they need.
Yeah, that's really interesting. The idea of like a digital trunk show especially because the brands have, big customers all over the world. I'm thinking of like the super luxury brands that you have
Right.
people in Dubai, people in the United States, people in Australia, and being able to do something online like this, where I'm also kind of getting those, like the 1950s in gimbals when they would pull you into the private salon and you would see the collection. I'm thinking of like the big disruption here is it takes out the retail chain. Like, theoretically, you don't need a brick and mortar at this point.
Right. You would not with this format. Like as long as you were able to display it and ship it. No.
And so you said that I think it was next year, it's going to be 5% of all sales. Is that correct? Online sales?
Yeah. Within the next few years. No.
What are the projections long term?
So it's supposed to grow at like 50+% a year over the next few years. So like I've only seen like core site is only going out like 5 years. So I don't have it past that. And we need to see what the adoption is. I do think there's so many players now. I mean, I have seen an acceleration in the last 6 months of how many players have stepped in to the arena. I don't think they're all going to last because I think, whenever you have like there's some commoditization that's going to happen among these
Okay.
brands. There's less differentiation. But I think in terms of the growth that we're talking about, as these brands and some of the price points drop, there are going to be more companies that take advantage. Because some of the bigger players, the little guys can't use. Like a firework or bamboozer is a little bit harder if you're a smaller business, right? There's other players that are going to step into that space. But now, like as some of the price points are dropping, I think you're going to see more acceleration. I think this is a new channel. This is a new channel. This is not a type of marketing campaign. This is a new channel.
So I have two questions, and I'm going to
Okay.
ask them both so I don't forget because I will. And
Okay.
that's the question.
You might have to remind me of the second question when I get to it. Yeah, go ahead.
So the first question is, does it have to be live, right? Or could it be, because I was getting an idea of like old Friends, right? Friends episode and just adding a click to buy, like, oh, I really love that couch. I want that couch. So does it have to be live? And then the other question is there somewhere we can go today, tomorrow to experience this process so we have an idea of what it looks like, what it feels like as consumers?
Okay. So no, it doesn't have to be live. So different platforms have different functionality. So almost all will allow you to replay. So like you would pre-record it, you could put it up there and you could put the commerce piece as an overlay, play it as a live and even have the community piece as a live, even though the actual video that they're seeing isn't live. Other ones have it where you can be live and cut to a tape that's pre-recorded. So for example, if they wanted to do a commercial in the middle or something like that, or if you're like, hey, we're showing you this brand new purse, we'll show you how the leather, is treated, et cetera. And they go to the designers and they show, something, in Milan, right? And they'll show it there, and that's pre-recorded in the middle of the live. So you can do that as well. So there are, like, I had an issue with one of my clients recently. There's two girls who host the show all the time, and one was going to be out, and they asked if they could pre-record it and, put up all the items. And like, yep. And so they pre-recorded it, and then they highlighted all the items in real time, like somebody else did. They ran it live, and, no one's the wiser, right? And then your second question was,
Is there somewhere we could go today
oh,
to experience it?
yes, a lot of the big platforms will list, what are upcoming shows. So like, then you can find one that interests you. So, you know, Firework, Bamboozler, Stage 10, they always have them listed. Target does a ton all the time. Nordstrom does a ton all the time. So you could go, I mean, if you just Google live commerce, live shopping shows, or events, and you can find them coming up. But a lot of the big brands are doing them.
So then
Yeah.
we have an opportunity for an aggregator of sales dates and sales information. You also have, I'm guessing that.
Yeah, I'm writing this down. I'm writing that down.
So then one more question. So today the news came out that Natura, which is a Brazilian beauty brand or beauty holding company, just sold Aesop for $2.5 billion to L'Oreal. And I know one of the things that L'Oreal was most interested in purchasing was their retail stores. What is the future of retail? Like, what role do retail stores play in the experience if shopping is literally every shopping thing you could ever want is on your phone in your pocket?
So there's two answers to that. One, you can use the format as it is today for driving foot traffic to retail stores. So, retail is changing. Retail is not dead. It's just that we have a different expectation of what that experience is, right? It can't just be, I mean, that has become very commoditized. That's why some of the malls are not doing it as well, right? But the stores that have amazing experiences, think of like the Warby Parkers of the world, the Apples, etc., Dyson, those stores are doing well, right? And what you can do with live shopping, though, think about it. As we talk about different cities, like if I think about different cities across the US, I think about Montgomery, Alabama, San Francisco. I think of Miami. I think of Chicago. I think of maybe, Boise, Idaho. We're going to have different clothing in those stores because there's different regional preferences for clothing. So live shopping is a great way to call attention to that. Say, hey, this is what we have. This is the new stuff that came in. And that is a great way to help drive traffic. Like, hey, we just got this new stuff in. So that's one piece. The second piece is a number of these live shopping platforms offer one-to-one concierge type of stuff. So some of them actually know your purchase history, can make recommendations based on that, so that piece happens online. So even though the sale is somewhat going through the store, like you're coming online, and it sort of bridges that gap between online and in store, and able to sort of help you like a private shopper would in the same way.
Amazing. Before we let you go, tell us a little bit about where to find you and your agency if people wanted to get in touch with you to learn more about live commerce.
Sure. So my company is called Lizard Strategy. We're lizardstrategy.com. You can find me on Instagram, LinkedIn as Liz Kressel, and then on TikTok as Lizard Strategy. So we're constantly doing videos about live shopping and, just the little tips and tricks and things like that. And also talking about sort of e-commerce faux pas that people do and what you shouldn't do. So
we love a good faux pas list.
Yes.
All right, Liz, thank you so much for being with me today.
Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.